Hello. These are a few short stories that happened in my life that I thought could be interesting and inspiring for some of you, besides they are being so, uh, I think educational in one way, in a very deep way. So some of those stories I might have mentioned here and there. Some I think are not mentioned. You know. One of those stories is. These are all stories that I was part of. One of those stories is the story of how I started journeying into the spiritual journey. And that was in the late 60s. I was doing a lot of bioenergetics therapy. I was involved in releasing and getting involved with so much of the healing that was needed for me at that time. You know, being in the 60s in Berkeley was quite a challenge. And so I needed something to ground me. You know, it was crazy all around. The hippies and the drug scene and all of that throw me off center. So I got involved in bioenergetics. I wasn't interested in getting into spirituality or any of those trips. I just wanted to get back to my basic sanity, focus on my education, finish my schooling, and go back to Kuwait. I was in Berkeley. I came from Kuwait in 65. So this is part of how I started this therapeutic healing and then spiritual journey. As I got more and more into releasing, and I was really very much in it, devoted in it. Every day I would spend hours also breathing, releasing, discharging, and I might have even overdone it to the point that I activated so much energy in my system, you know, and some of it was like awakening Kundalini at that time. You know, it was a big thing. And I didn't want to awaken Kundalini, but all of a sudden, this energy of light and colors and this started to open up in my system, and I got so scared. And at that time, I heard about Claudio Naranjo, bless his soul, he left us, and he was formulated a SAT group that one of my friends joined. So I decided, you know, maybe I should go see him, and maybe he can help me get rid of this Shakti, get this spiritual energy that I didn't even know what's it about. Instead, he pushed me further into it. Thanks a lot. And I ended up now where I am now, which I am really grateful. During that journey, I began to deepen in my releasing and unconscious discharging. And I ran into a huge conflict within my soul, within my psyche. When I was a little boy, around 3 years old, I felt very sick. I almost died. And next to our house was a saint, a very beautiful old man, a saint, whom I remember I used to go visit him when I was little, you know, and sit by him while he was reading the Quran, and he was blessing me and really reading verses of protection and care. And so when I went into this illness, and I went into a coma for about 3 days, and they thought I was dying. And then something happened out of nowhere. I wake up from the coma. I get up from the bed. You know, my mother said they even had my coffin next to me. So I was a little boy. I walk out, and there was huge crowd gathering, you know, and they were wailing and crying and lamenting, you know. And there was a coffin, you know, carried by the men, shrouded in green. And when I came out of the door of the house, my mother and my aunt saw me, so they came rushing, hugging me, taking me inside, so I don't get shocked about what happened, you know, this. But something in me knew something big happened, and then I was told that the saint, that old man, died, you know. And one of the rumor that was there that he died to give me his soul. And that's why I came to life that day. You know, that I think resulted in such a deep, deep guilt within me that my soul is not my soul. I was given that soul. I took on somebody else's soul, you know. And I didn't even know. I just forgot about the story till I started doing some in-depth work, gestalt, bioenergetics, processing, releasing. And then this feeling came. So I was so agonized about it. And I remember I went to Claudio Naranjo and I said, Claudio, this is what I am going through. I don't know how to go through it. I feel that I am not accepting my light. I'm not accepting my life. I'm not accepting my energy. I am afraid of all of those things because they are not mine. And Claudio said, okay, let me think about it, meditate on it. He did for 2-3 weeks, you know, and then he came and said, Faisal, I really don't know. I don't get any answer about this. Then during that time, one of the really wonderful being that I met, you know, in my life, used to come to visit Claudio Naranjo. He knew him. He was a friend. And he was a teacher of the Fourth Way, and he was into, you know, so many activities at that time. And his name is E.J. Gold, E.J. Gold. And he was really golden. He had so much density of goldenness, presence, and power, so much majestic power. And so Claudio Naranjo, they were with E.J. when he came visiting, they were in a restaurant, and the restaurant had, you know, lit up candles on the tables. And Claudio Naranjo told E.J. Gold, I have the student and this is his dilemma, you know, what to do. So E.J. Gold blew out the candle that was on his table, with the Claudio's table, and then went to another table, brought a candle, lit up candle, and lit up the candle that he blew out. And he said, did the candle that lit up, the extinguished candle, lose anything? He said, no. You know, he said, that's what happened. Maybe that saint just brought back his soul, just lit it up. But what he has is his soul. It's not the soul of any saint. Nobody can do that. Nobody can give the soul to somebody else because it doesn't work. Everybody wants their own soul. They don't want somebody else's soul. You know, they don't want the idea that somebody dies for us. I don't think is accurate. You know, I believe, you know, coming from the Middle East, from Islamic background, I believe Christ was not crucified. He didn't die for our sins. You know, I hope they forgive me about crossing the boundary, but I believe that he didn't die for our sins because it doesn't work. You know, everybody has to carry their own sins. Everybody have to deal with their own karma. Nobody can do that, you know. You have to do your own work. You have to do your own healing and transformation and undo the negative karma that you might have accumulated due to ignorance or just offness, you know. Just please do the corrective, and the universe is really open. So this is one of the stories. Another story was interesting, was I had a chance to travel to Iran, to Persia in 1975, 76. And there I was lucky to meet few different Sufis, dervishes. You know? And each one of them was such an amazing phenomenon, really delightful beings. You know? One of them was when we went to visit him one night. He was an older man, you know, maybe in his 70s or 80s, and he was living in a small house, a little house, maybe 2 or 3 little bedrooms. One bedroom was for the family, and one room was where he was sitting, and guests come to receive blessings or guidance or instruction from him. And so we went to visit him. At that time, I was trained in bioenergetics, Reiki therapy, Gestalt, Zazen. So I was keeping in-depth breathing and Zazen sitting and all of those, Eastern traditions that I learned. And when I went to visit him, I had my friend with me who took me there from Kuwait, and his uncle who used to live in Iran, and our guide. So our guide took us to this man, and when we entered the room, it was such a small room. And in the floor of it, there was like a little hole, and in it there was charcoal, and they had the black tea boiling with the charcoal, and the Sufi, he was smoking cigarettes and even opium, and there were 2-3 guests smoking cigarettes. It was winter, the doors were closed. It was suffocating, and he was coughing like crazy. He had so much severe cough, and I thought, how could he be a Sufi, a dervish, when he doesn't even know the basics? Here he is smoking cigarettes and opium in a closed room where carbon dioxide is also filling the room, and coughing like hell, and what am I doing here? This person doesn't even know the basics. I think he picked up on the what I was thinking. I was very young, judgmental in a healthy way, I thought. His skin was so dark, black, like there's no oxygenation, no coloring, no spaciousness. And he said that he is coughing so much because he has trouble, not just with his lungs, but with his heart. And that his friend, the doctor, tells him to stop smoking and to stop drinking black tea at night and to open the windows. But he said his doctor, he's young, he doesn't understand what's going on. He said the problem of all of this is because there is something wrong in my heart with God. And I have to figure out what's wrong with me with God. I said, this seems like to be like absurd, really ridiculous, Stop smoking, open to this, don't put something about God and you and all of that. Anyway, he transmitted to me, this man, the first insight, the first ignition, the first transmission about the essential state, which is the Lataif. He transmitted the red, green, yellow, black Latifa, and how they are labeled as the deaths, the 4 death stations, death stages on the way. And that later on came very handy when we ended the essential blockages to know the journey. Then we left. 6 months later, we went to visit him again. I went to visit Persia again, and we go to the same room, the same smoke, the same everything, and his face looked like a baby. So open, so glowing, so much energy and joy and love, and I was really stunned. How could that be, And he looked and he smiled. He knew what I was thinking. And he said, I figured out what's between me and God. And now that I figured it out, my heart is healed and my lungs are healed, And it was so. I don't recommend doing what he did. Don't smoke, don't, suffocate yourself. Stay healthy, breathe, all of those things, and if there is any issue between you and God, deal with it without having to go through this trauma. Another man we met also, another dervish, Sufi in Iran, the same trip. His name was Azadeh, which meant freedom. My friend and me and his uncle, who is, as I said, is Persian, lives in Persia, and our guide the guide took us to the dwelling of this Sufi, of this dervish. he was living in a place of Sufi gathering, let's say like a mosque or like, you know, like a place where they gather, sacred space. And in that building, there was a room, and that was his bedroom, as well as his living room, as well as his kitchen. It was a really small room, maybe 10 feet by 12 feet, very small. In one corner was his bed, in another corner was a huge box in which he put his clothes, and in another corner was this, you know, this is kerosene, I don't know what they call it, potogas, to cook in it, you know. And he wasn't there. We were allowed to enter his room, and he wasn't there. And when we were there waiting for him, a wave of just unbelievable joy started exploding in our system. So much joy. We were just laughing, smiling idiotically. We don't even know why, you know. And the guide said to us after, you know, we come down a little bit, he said, "Do you know why you're feeling that way?" We were shaking like feathers with joy, you know. Every cell was delighted. He said, "You're feeling that way because this dervish, this man, about 60 years ago, when he was 18 or 20 years old, he had like an experience of a great opening. And in that experience, he landed in his soul station. And that's the first time I hear about soul station." And then when I asked what is soul station, he said, every soul come into this existence with one dominant quality. One soul come with a lot of compassion, one soul come with a lot of brilliance, one soul come with a lot of love, one comes with a lot of will. Different souls have different quality more dominant. It doesn't mean they don't have the other qualities. They have the other qualities, but this quality is more dominant, and it really colors their life. Most people don't fall in their soul station because they are so busy trying to do other things, and mostly, as I explained in other videos, they're trying to heal the family home, fix mom, fix dad. So they are too busy to really find what they are about. So this is the time I understood the beginning of understanding of the soul station. Now, my friend, you know, his uncle, who is Persian, was an older man, was in his like middle age, 40s maybe, and we were young in our 20s. And this man was a very amazing man. He was very talented. He was a musician. And deep inside him, I think he was really a Sufi. But something happened to him in life. When he was young, in his teenage, he went to, I think, Europe, Germany or England, to study to be a doctor. And after years, he couldn't complete his studies. He failed. And he felt so much ashamed, and he felt so much hurt, that in doing to cover all of those feelings, he renounced his heritage, his lineage, that he is Persian, he is Iranian. He has so much of that tradition in him. And instead, he wanted to be Westernized. So he would wear a hat and carry umbrella and walk in this beautiful town, which is purely Persian town. It was called Shiraz, full of Sufis and all of those things. Yet, because his soul has so much connection to the Sufis, he cannot resist going to the Sufis and meet with them. And they love him, and they know what he is doing, you know, and they always pose a challenge to him. They give him a riddle, a koan to solve, you know, and he usually thinks about it till he finds out what's it about and get the message of what the Sufi tried to tell him indirectly, because they want him to work his mind a little bit to awaken his connection to his soul. So that night, you know, when we met to this man of joy, 60 years in the station of joy. When he fell in his soul station, his soul station was joy, you know. So whenever he changes from one state to another and then comes to rest in his being, come to rest in his life, he will feel just joy, immense joy. So that night when this old man came and we were sitting with him, it was so delight to be in his presence. He was like a cheer up. I think he was 9 on the Enneagram. And his level of acceptance was so amazing, you know. Everything we say, he said, possible, you know. So if we say the camel flies, say, yeah, possible, you know. He wasn't interested in any debating with us or any offending, defending, none of that. He just wanted to, in the silence and in the field, to do blessings to us, to do transmission, you know, quietly, silently, and not engage our ego in any debate or, you know, of any sort. And he would, when he offers something and you say no, he would offer it 3 times, you know. And whatever he says, he will repeat it 3 times, you know. And we were wondering, like, if he was getting old, you know, senile. He was like in his 80s, but he was so sharp, so present, so clear. Then later on, I realized that every time he offers something, the first time he offers it from the head, then he offers it from the heart, then he offers it from the belly. So he tried to talk to one of our centers to see which one will accept the offering, you know. So he was very, very mindful of the transmission, of the activation, and of the blessings. Then when we were on the verge of leaving, our friend, the uncle of my friend, the Persian guy, ran out of cigarettes. And so he asked Azadeh, this delightful man, if he has cigarettes. And Azadeh said, yes. He offered him cigarettes, and our friend, the uncle, said, this is Persian cigarettes. I don't smoke Persian cigarettes. I only smoke Western cigarettes, you know. And the Sufi said, well, cigarettes, Persian, Western, they are all cigarettes, you know. Just take this one and go. He said, no, I want my cigarettes to have filter. And the Sufi said, you know, filter, no filter, it's just tobacco, smoke it. Anyway, he repeated 3 times. Our friend refused. Then the Sufi said to him, then what kind of cigarettes do you smoke? And our friend said, I smoke Winston. I remember. He said, how do you describe Winston? He said, a pack has red, white, red, you know. And the Sufi said, oh, I think I may have one. I may have a pack of cigarettes, pack of cigarettes. So he goes to the box where his clothes are. He opens it up. He takes 1 box out. He opens it up. There is even smaller box in it. He opens up. There is a pack of Winston, brand new, unopened. And so the dervish said to our friend, take it. You know, you smoke it. I don't smoke it. Take it. And the friend said, no. Sufi said, take it. The friend said, no, 3 times. Then the Sufi said, okay, you know, then take just some for you. So he took 3 cigarettes out, put them in his pocket, and we went home. And we could see that the 3 cigarettes were Winston. They had, you know, the brown filter. At 5 or 6 in the morning, our friend wakes up early. He comes rushing to our home, to our room, you know, saying, wake up, wake up. He was so out of his, you know, wits at that time, so excited. And he said, what happened? He said, do you remember what happened about the cigarettes? We said, yes, you know, you took 3 cigarettes. He said, you know, I took 3 cigarettes, I came home, and now I just pulled them out of my pocket. You know, he just woke up, he wanted to smoke. I pulled them up, and the 3 of them were not the same. 2 of them were Persian, and 1 cigarette was Winston. And of course, at that time, we were like young, impressed, we're looking for spiritual powers and, you know, Don Juan and things like that, you know. And our friend said, no, 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 don't think about how did he do it and the tricks. And they do these tricks all the time. They are capable of playing with powers and things like that. This is not the issue here. The issue is, what is this man trying to tell me? He's sending me this message. Why did he change it to 2 cigarettes Persian and 1 cigarette Winston? Of course, you know, the whole week we were with him, he was sweating, you know, he was bald, he was sweating from the top of his head, trying to figure it out. It was such a big challenge, such a big stress, a blow to his ego that his ego couldn't take it. So then we left and came back another time, and we asked him, you know, and he looked different. His life, his style seemed to be very different. We said, you know, did you solve the riddle of the cigarette? He said, no, I couldn't. For 3 months, I couldn't think of anything. Then I just had to go to Azadeh. And I said to him, I know you did it, but I cannot get the message. I'm so blocked. I cannot get the message. Why did you do that? And the Sufi said to him, you are 2/3 Persian, 1/3 Westerner. You have renounced 2 of your thirds, 2/3 of your being, your lineage, your tradition, the richness of your culture, the Sufi, the music, the art. You know, you renounce, you throw the baby with the bathwater, you throw your culture and try to be now, you know, an Englishman or a German. And that's only 1/3, maybe less than 1/3 of your life, you know. So then he really had an awakening. He said, oh, I see, my shame, my fear, my guilt stood in the way of me owning the richness of where I am, the richness of my soul. And the delight is that he was a musician. He composed, I think, 5 or 6 albums, music. They became really successful. And he got married and had children. His life completely changed. So that's another story of the delight of some of those, what those Sufis do. It's an amazing thing, you know, meeting some of those delightful teachers. Another one is in that same trip, we had the chance to be in the presence of the Qutb, Qutub, the Qutb, the head of the Sufi order. At every age, at every stage, there is only one Qutb. And through all kinds of remarkable circumstances, we were allowed to be in his presence. He usually not known, he doesn't reveal his identity, he doesn't meet new people, but somehow he was asked to meet us. And, you know, I had the blessings of being in his presence. He really looked, when I entered his room, you know, he looked like a mountain, shimmering mountain, brilliant and green and blue, diamond shining through all his system. And there was not even a hole. Every part of him is shining with presence and intensity and transparency and luminosity and really immensity. I mean, I was all in the presence of the Karmapa, I was in the presence of the Dalai Lama, many other high beings. Honestly, nobody could come close to the immensity of this being. And he transmitted to us some few things. One is very, very profound, in which I made a video about the something happened to the Quran, you know, and that nobody knows what happened to it. And then the story of how another friend of mine found the key to unlock the book of 7 seals. So if you're interested, you can Google on YouTube the book of the 7 seals. After meeting him, we were so exalted, you know, I mean, really high, as we say, exalted, shaken, blessed. And when we were sleeping that night, I was with my friend in one room, my bed on one side and his bed on the other side, and we sleeping in the room. And before I went to sleep, I was laying down. I sensed the presence of somebody sitting behind my head. I was lying down, and there is an entity or a presence. And I was at that time gifted with seeing. So I looked, and there was the Qutb, and sitting in a lotus form made of jewels, diamonds, crystals, pearls. I mean, really an immense entity, like a point of light, what I call a point of light, or a being of light, a person of light, with utmost blessing. And he was channeling blessings and empowerment through my whole system. And I was really feeling blessed. I mean, so happy, so protected, so loved. And while I was receiving that, I said to him, please, his name was Rahnuma. Rahnuma means the path or the way. I said, please, Rahnuma, can you, after you finish your transmission for me, can you go to my friend, stand above his head or behind his head, because he was laying down, and transmit blessings to him? And he said, all this is now in silent transmission, just from, as they say, heart to heart, mind to mind, psyche to psyche. He said, watch. And here is his entity, and it divided into 2 points of light. 1 point of light here, 1 point of light there, emanating to us. This is, I wish I have this power. I wish I have this capacity to have my point of light divide, so I don't have to do so much traveling. I send many of points of Faisal here and there for my group and visit my friends. But this is also an inspiration about what is waiting for us. We have spirituality looked so much at the power, CDs, blessings, and later on there has been, as I said, so much of the New Age spirituality zoomed only on the Absolute and the radiance of the Absolute and the gift that the Absolute gives, but very little about the evolution of the points of light. We as souls, how can we evolve? How can we mature? For example, whenever I invoke the Christ point of light, I feel the presence of this point of light. But I know that also millions are also invoking this point of light. And they feel the emanation of this point of light. Now, what kind of emanation this point of light has? How many emanations am I receiving? Is like a sun, a ray from the sun, and the edge of the ray, the end of the ray is an image of that entity. So everybody seeing millions of emanations coming from that entity. This is, I believe, an immense teaching waiting to be opened up. The glory of the human being, the glory of existence, and how much there is waiting for us. Yes, be enlightened, reach your Buddha nature, but don't try to convolute everything and make it just the Absolute, including that even the point of light is just fabrication of the Absolute. It's not like that. It's really not like that. This view is very limiting and very distorting and takes away the responsibility of the uniqueness of who we are and the potential of our infinite evolution. So please be mindful about these teachings. I don't blame the teachers, because I know those people who are talking about this way, they are absolutists. They are addict to this aspect of being, the Absolute. And in doing so, they negate the individuated soul, the individuated being. Another dervish met in those traveling in Iran was just skinny guy, you know, all this, we were all waiting for this opulent teacher to come, waiting for dinner, and, you know, all set, waiting for this dervish, and this skinny, tiny guy in ragged clothes come, greeting us, and then he said, I said, okay, let's eat. He was really hungry. Seemed like he worked very hard. Then ate and blessed the food and blessed us, and then he leaned against the wall and put his head against the wall, and he said, I am going to the throne now. Wow, he's going to the throne. We are waiting for this big transmission teaching. And in 1 minute, he was snoring, sleeping so peacefully, so deeply. Few minutes, he wakes up, then he tells us a few stories, bless us, and we leave. So this is another story. And I think one of the touching, beautiful story, I mentioned it in another video, but I think it really, I would love to just repeat it again and send the transmission in it. I had the blessings to be in the presence of the old Karmapa, I think the 16th Karmapa, when he came, I think 71 or 70, something around early 70s, to San Francisco on Pier 39. And I went with so many kids at that time. You know, I heard about it, and from Claudio, and we all went to receive the blessings. And I really didn't know anything about Tibet or about gurus. Or I was just like, you know, the fool in the wedding. Everybody going, so I'm going, you know, going there. But deep inside, I was hoping for some blessings, some barakah. And then he was performing the black hat ceremony. And when he put on the black hat, you know, before he put on the black hat, there were about 3,000 or 4,000 seekers in the you know, in the building. And you could, at least I could feel and see the space in that big building was filled with static, you know, like mist in the air, but it's disturbing mist. It's the thought patterns of people, static energy in the air. And so it wasn't so transparent. Then when the Karmapa came and he put on the hat, he did his ceremony and then put on the hat, I could sense as if a huge tsunami, a huge wave of something so amazing coming at us. And each line it passes, you know, we were standing in lines in front of him. Each line it passes, there is a hush, as if the mind of the people that it passed over got silenced. By the time it came over me, there was the whole space in the room was shining with luminosity and radiance and exquisite feeling of just joy, love, celebration. And I was really touched and moved without knowing anything about the teaching, but about the being connected to the absolute, to the clear radiance that I didn't even know it was a clear radiance. Then I had the chance to be in front of the Karmapa, receive the blessings and the thread and encouragement. You know, he really transmitted so much love while I was there standing at him. He was kept looking, smiling, loving. Then I heard, you know, years later that he passed away. He got sick and he passed away. He was young, I think in his 50s, passed away. And I was at that time, I already reached my awakening. I just recognized my enlightened nature, and I recognized I received the seed of it, the transmission of it from the Karmapa, and my guru Tarthantuku was really the transmitter and the enhancer and the opening and the ushering of me into that state. So I was feeling so beautiful, so glorious, so loving, so much love, you know, and I felt like I could really help so many lost souls, because I knew the end of the journey. I knew that any soul lost anywhere is because it hasn't reached this state. It may be caught in one domain or another, in one tunnel or another, in one, black worm or something like that, that if I find where they are, or if I look, I can guide them to come to this. That there is, the end of the journey is exuberance, is wonderful. So I wasn't afraid to go all the way in whatever it is. Death, insanity, love. I knew if I go all the way, the enlightened field is waiting. So when I heard about the death of the Karmapa, I meditated and I said, I want to just feel him, feel his presence. And when I did, when I connected with that, I could feel, the beauty and the glory. And as an offering deep in my youthful soul at that time, I felt, I said to him, Your Holiness, do you need anything from me? And I could see him, he's smiling, and he said, yeah, can you guide me? Can you help me? I said, yeah, I can, would you like me to guide you? I said, if you need me, can I guide you? Because I know the way through the bardo to the light. He said, yes. So I am like this youth, I don't know, rooster or peacock, showing in front of his spiritual father, Dad, I can carry you, I can help you. So I said, okay, follow. So I ascended through one cloud after another, one hole after another issue. And I said, okay, let's continue, and I look like encouraging him to come. But each time I look, somehow I always see him ahead of me. Then I said, oh, maybe I didn't see him move past me because I was looking back to find him, But then the story continued again and again. He's always ahead of me, And then I looked at him, and we were in that moment, we entered in the Absolute, and he was smiling with great joy and happiness. And the message came is that he loved me. He wanted to give me the honor of guiding him while he was already taking my steps. I could have been lost. I could have been lost in the bardo. But he didn't want to offend me. He honored my, this flame in my heart and my soul of love and of care and of wanting to really make my offering. And that was such humbling, such humbling, the immensity of love, the immensity of grace that came from such a soul. These are, how I hope, entertaining and inspiring stories, and I hope, more to come. If I remember, I will share with you. All right, thanks.